Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to Divine Ecstasy. You are requested to subscribe our channel, like this video and share it as much as possible to increase Krishna consciousness. This video is simply an audio of the book Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter-60 talks between Krishna and Rukmini. Once upon a time, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the bestower of all knowledge upon all living entities, from Brahma to the insignificant ant, was sitting in the bedroom of Rukmini, who was engaged in the service of the Lord, along with her assistant maid servants. Krishna was sitting on the bedstead of Rukmini, and the maid servants were fanning him with chamara. Lord Krishna's dealings with Rukmini as a perfect husband are a perfect manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many philosophers who propound a concept of the absolute truth in which God cannot do this or that. They deny the incarnation of God or the supreme absolute truth in human form, but actually the fact is different. God cannot be subject to our imperfect sensual activities. He is the all-powerful, omnipresent personality of Godhead, and by His supreme, He can not only create, maintain, and annihilate the whole cosmic manifestation, but also descend as an ordinary human being to execute the highest mission. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, whenever there are discrepancies in the discharge of human occupational duties, He descends. He is not forced to appear by any external agency, but He descends by His own internal potency in order to re-establish the standard function of human activities and simultaneously annihilate the disturbing elements in the progressive march of human civilization. In accordance with this principle of the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, He descended in His eternal form as Sri Krishna in the dynasty of the Yadus. The palace of Rukmini was wonderfully furnished. Hanging from the ceiling were many canopies with laces bedecked with pearl garlands, and the whole place was illuminated by the effulgence of valuable jewels. There were many flower groves of Malika and Chameli, which are considered the most fragrant flowers in India. There were many clusters of these plants, with blooming flowers enhancing the beauty of the palace, and because of the exquisite fragrance of the flowers, little groups of hummingbirds and bees gathered around the trees, and at night the pleasing moonshine glittered through the network of holes in the windows. There were many heavily flowered trees of parijat, and the mild wind stirred the fragrance of the flowers all around. Incense burned within the walls of the palace, and the fragrant smoke leaked out of the window shutters. Within the room were mattresses covered with white bed sheets. The bedsheet was as soft and white as a milk foam. In this situation, Lord Sri Krishna sat very comfortably and enjoyed the service of Rukmini ji, who was assisted by her maid servants. Rukmini was eager to get the opportunity to serve her husband, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She, therefore, wanted to serve the God personally and took the handle of the chamara from the hand of a maid servant and began to move the fan. The handle of the chamara was made of gold and bedecked with valuable jewels. and it became more beautiful when taken by Rukmini, because all of her fingers were beautifully set with jeweled rings. Her legs were decorated with jeweled ankle bells, which rang very softly between the pleats of her sari. Rukmini's raised breasts were smeared with kumkum and saffron. Thus her beauty was enhanced by the reflection of the reddish color emanating from her covered breast. Her high hips were decorated with a jeweled lace girdle, and a locket of great effulgence hung on her neck. Above all, because she was engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, although at that time she was old enough to have grown-up sons, her beautiful body was beyond compare in the three worlds. When we take account of her beautiful face, it appears that the curling hair on her head, the beautiful earrings on her ears, and her smiling mouth and her necklace of gold, and combined to shower rains of nectar. And thus it was definitely proved that Rukmini was none other than the original goddess of fortune, who is always engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Narayan. The pastimes of Krishna and Rukmini, Dwarka, are accepted by the great authorities as manifestations of those of Narayan and Lakshmi, which are of an exalted opulence. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan are simple and rural, distinguished from the polished urban characteristics of those of Dwarka. The characteristics of Rukmini were usually bright, and Krishna was very much satisfied with her behavior. Krishna had experienced that when Rukmini was offered a parijat flower by Narad Muni, Satyabhama had become envious of her co-wife and had immediately demanded a similar flower from Krishna. In fact, she could not be pacified until she was promised the whole tree, and Krishna actually fulfilled his promise. He brought the tree down to the earth planet from the heavenly kingdom. After this episode, Krishna expected that because Satyabhama had been rewarded with a full tree of parijat, Rukmini would also demand something. Rukmini did not mention anything of the incident, however, for she was grave and simply satisfied in her service. Krishna wanted to see her a bit irritated, and therefore he schemed to see the beautiful face of Rukmini and in an irritated condition. Although Krishna had more than 16,100 wives, he used to behave with each of them with familial affection. He would create a particular situation between himself and his wife, in which the wife would criticize him in the irritation of love, and Krishna would simply enjoy this. In this case, because Krishna could not find any fault with Rukmini, for she was very grave and always engaged in his service, he, smiling in great love, began to speak to her, just to provoke her loving anger. Rukmini was the daughter of Bhismaka, a powerful king. Thus Krishna did not address her as Rukmini. He addressed her this time as the princess. My dear princess, it is very surprising. Many great personalities in the royal order wanted to marry you, although not all of them were kings. All possessed the opulence and riches of the kingly order. They were well-behaved, learned, famous among kings, beautiful in their bodily features and personal qualifications, liberal, very powerful in strength, and advanced in every respect. They were not unfit in any way, and over and above that, your father and your brother had no objection to such a marriage. On that contrary, they gave their word of honor that you would be married with Shishupal. Indeed, the marriage was sanctioned by both of parents. Shishupal was a great king and was so lusty and mad after you that if he had married you, I think he would have remained with you just like your faithful servant. In comparison to Sisupal, with his personal qualities, I'm nothing, and you may personally realize it. I'm surprised that you rejected the marriage with Sisupal and accepted me, who am inferior in comparison to him. I think myself completely unfit to be your husband because you are so beautiful, sober, grave, and exalted. May I inquire from you the reason that induced you to accept me? Now, of course, I may accept you. I may address you as my beautiful wife, but still I may inform you of my actual position, that I am inferior to all those princes who wanted to marry you. First of all, you may know that I was so afraid of Jarasandh that I could not dare to live on the land, and thus I have constructed this house within the water of the sea. It is not my business to disclose these secrets to others, but you must know that I am not very heroic. I am a coward and am afraid of my enemies. Still, I am not safe because all the great kings of the land are inimical to me. I have personally created this inimical feeling by fighting with them in many ways. Another fault is that although I am on the throne of Dwarka, I have no immediate claim. Although I got a kingdom by killing my maternal uncle, Kans, the kingdom was to go to my grandfather, so actually I have no possession of a kingdom. Besides that, I have no fixed aim in life. People cannot understand me very well. What is the ultimate goal of my life? They know very well that I was a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. People expected very well that I was a cowherd boy and I would follow the footsteps of my foster father Nanda Maharaj and be faithful to Srimati Radharani and all her friends in the village of Vrindavan. But all of a sudden, I suddenly left them. I wanted to become a famous prince. Still, I could not have any kingdom, nor I could rule as a prince. People are bewildered about my ultimate goal of life. They do not know whether I am a cowherd boy or a prince, whether I am the son of Nanda Maharaj or the son of Vasudev. Because I have no fixed aim in life, people may call me a vagabond. Therefore, I am surprised that you could select such a vagabond husband. Besides this, I am not very polished, even in social etiquette. A person should be satisfied with one wife. But you see, I have married many times. I have more than 16,000 wives. I cannot please all of them as a polished husband. My behavior with them is not very nice, and I know that you are very conscious of it. I sometimes create a situation with my wives which is not very happy. Because I was trained in a village in my childhood, I am not well acquainted with the etiquette of urban life. I do not know the way to please a wife with nice words and behavior. And from practical experience, it is found that any woman who follows my way or becomes attracted to me is ultimately left to cry for the rest of her life. In Vrindavan, many gopis were attracted to me, and now as I have left, they are living but are simply crying for me in separation. I have heard from Akrura and Uddhava that since I left Vrindavan, all my cowherd boyfriends and gopis and Radharani and my foster father Nanda Maharaj are simply crying constantly for me. I have left Vrindavan for good and am now engaged with the queens of Dwarka, but I am not well behaved with any of you. So you can very easily understand that I have no steadiness of character. I am not a very reliable husband. The net result of being attracted to me is to acquire a life of bereavement only. My dear beautiful princess, you may also know that I am always penniless. Just after my birth, I was carried penniless to the house of Nanda Maharaj, and I was raised just like a cowherd boy. Although my foster father possessed many hundreds of and thousands of cows, I was not the proprietor of even one of them. I was simply entrusted with taking care of them and tending them, but I was not the proprietor. Here also I am not the proprietor of anything, but am always penniless. There is no cause to lament for such a penniless condition. I possessed nothing in the past, so why should I lament that I do not possess anything at present? You may note also that my devotees are also not very opulent. They are very poor in the worldly possession. Persons who are very rich, possessing worldly wealth, are not interested in devotion to me or Krishna consciousness. On the contrary, when a person becomes penniless, whether by force or circumstances, he may become interested in me if he gets the proper opportunity. Persons who are proud of their riches, even if they are offered association with my devotees, do not take advantage of consciousness into me. In other words, the poorer class of men may have interest in me, but rich men do not have any interest. I think, therefore, that your selection of me was not very intelligent. You appear very intelligent, trained by your father and brother, but ultimately you have made a very big mistake in selecting your life's companion. But there is no harm. The mistake can still be rectified, and it is better than ever. You are at liberty to select the suitable husband who is actually an equal to you in opulence, family, tradition, wealth, beauty, education, in all respects. Whatever mistakes you may have made may be forgotten. Now you may chalk out your own lucrative path of life. Usually, a person does not establish a marital relationship with a person who is either higher or lower than his position. My dear daughter of the king of Vidarbha, I think you did not consider very sagaciously before your marriage. Thus, you made a wrong selection by choosing me as your husband. You mistakenly heard about my having a very exalted character, although factually I was nothing more than a beggar. Without seeing me and my actual position, simply hearing about me, you selected me as your husband. That is not very rightly done. Therefore, since it is better late than never, I advise you to select now one of the great Kshatriya princes and accept him as your life's companion, and you may reject me. Krishna was proposing that Rukmini divorce him at that time when Rukmini had many grown-up children. Therefore, Krishna's whole proposition appeared to be something unexpected, because according to the Vedic culture there was nothing such as separation of husband and wife by divorce, nor it was possible for Rukmini to choose a new husband at her advanced age when she had many married sons. To Rukmini, every of the Krishna's proposals appeared crazy, and she was surprised that Krishna could say such things. Simple as she was, her anxiety was increasing more and more at the thought of separation from Krishna. Krishna continued, "After all, you have to prepare yourself for next life. I therefore advise that you may select someone who can help you in both this life and next. For I am completely unable to help. My dear beautiful princess, as you know that all the members of the princely order, including Sisupal, Salva, Jarasandh, Dantavarka, and even your elder brother Rukmi, are my enemies. They do not like me at all. They hate me from the core of their heart. All these princes were very much puffed up with their worldly possession and did not care a fig for anyone who came before them. In order to teach them some lesson, I decided to kidnap you according to your desire. Otherwise, I have no love for you, although you loved me even before the marriage. As I have already explained, I am not very much interested in family life or love between husband and wife. By nature, I'm not very fond of family life, wife and children and worldly appearances. As my devotees are neglectful to all these worldly possessions, I am also like that. Actually, I am interested in self-realization that gives me pleasure and not this family life. After submitting his statement, Lord Krishna suddenly stopped. The great authority Sukadev Goswami remarks that Krishna almost always passed his time with Rukmini, and Rukmini was a bit proud to be fortunate that Krishna never left her alone even for a moment. Krishna, however, does not like any of his devotees to be proud. As soon as a devotee becomes so, by some tactic, he cuts down that pride. In this case also, Krishna had many things which were hard for Rukmini to hear. She could only conclude that although she was proud of her position, Krishna could be separated from her at any moment. Rukmini was conscious that her husband was not an ordinary human being. He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of three worlds. By the way he was speaking, she was afraid of being separated from the Lord, for she had never heard such hard words from Krishna before. Thus, she became perplexed with fear of separation, and her heart began to palpitate. Without replying to a word of Krishna's statement, simply cried in great anxiety. As if drowning in an ocean of grief, she silently scratched the floor with her toenails, which reflected reddish light on the floor. The tears from her eyes mixed with black cosmetic ointment from her eyelids and dropped down, washing the kumkum and saffron from her breast. Choked up on account of great anxiety, unable to speak even a word, she kept her head downward and remained standing like a stick. Due to extremely painful fear and lamentation, she lost all her power of reason and became weak. Her body, losing so much of weight that the bangles on her wrist became slack. The chamara with she was serving Krishna immediately fell down from her hand. Her brain and memory became puzzled, and she lost consciousness. The nicely combed hair on her head scattered here and there she fell down straight like a banana tree cut down by a whirlwind. Lord Krishna immediately realized that Rukmini had not taken his words in a joking spirit. She had taken them very seriously, and her extreme anxiety over immediate separation from him, she had fallen into this condition. Lord Krishna is naturally very affectionate towards his devotees, and when she saw Rukmini's condition, his heart immediately softened. At once he became merciful to her. The relationship between Rukmini and Krishna was like Narayana and Lakshmi. Therefore, Krishna appeared before Rukmini in his four-handed manifestation of Narayan. He got down from the bedstead, lifted her up by his hands, and placed his cooling hands on her face, smoothed the scattered hair on her head. Lord Krishna dried the wet breast of Rukmini ji with his hand. Understanding the seriousness of Rukmini's love for him, he embraced her to his chest. The Supreme Personality is expert in putting a thing reasonably for one's understanding, and thus he tried to retract all he had said before. He is the only resort for his devotees, so he knows very well how to satisfy his pure devotees. Krishna understood that Rukmini could not follow the statements he had made in a joking way. To counteract her confusion, he spoke as follows: "My dear daughter of King Vidarbha, my dear Rukmini, please do not misunderstand me. Please don't be unkind to me like this. I know you are very sincerely and seriously attached to me. You are my eternal companion. The words which have affected you so much are not factual. I wanted to irritate you for a bit, and I was expecting you to make counter answers to these joking words. Fortunately, you have taken them very seriously. I'm sorry for it. I expected that your red lips would tremble in anger when you heard my statement, and that you would chat aside with me with many words. Oh, perfection of love! I never expected that your condition would be like this. I expected that you would cast your blinking glance upon me in retaliation, and that I would thus be able to see your beautiful face in that angry mood. My dear wife, you know that because we are householders and we are simply busy in many household affairs and long for a time we can enjoy some joking words between us. That is our ultimate gain in household life. Actually, household workers work very hard day and night, but all fatigue of the day's labor is minimized as soon as they meet, husband and wife together, and enjoy life in many ways. Lord Krishna wanted to exhibit himself as beginning as a household worker who delights him by exchanging joking words with his wife. He therefore repeatedly requested Rukmini to not take those words very seriously. In this way, she was pacified by his words. She could understand that what he had formerly said was not factually meant seriously, but she was spoken to evoke some jokingly pleasure between themselves. She was therefore pacified by hearing the words of Krishna. Gradually she was freed from all fear of separation from him, and she began to look at his face very cheerfully. With a naturally smiling face, she said, "My dear lotus-eyed Lord, your statement, 'We are not in a fit combination,' is completely right. That is not possible for me to come in an equal level with you, for you are the reservoir of all qualities, the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can I be fit match for you? There is no possibility of comparison with you, who are the master of all greatness, the controller of the three qualities, an object of worship for demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva. As far as I am concerned, I am a product of three modes of material nature, which impede the progressive advancement of devotional service. Where and when can I be a fit match for you, my dear husband? You have rightly said that you have been taken in the shelter of the water of the sea as if you were afraid of the kings. But who are the kings of this material world? I do not think these royal families are the king. The king of the material world are the three modes of material nature, who are its actual controllers. You are situated in the core of everyone's heart, where you remain completely aloof from the touch of the three modes of material nature. There is no doubt about it. You say you always maintain enmity with the worldly kings. But who are the worldly kings? I think the worldly kings are the senses, because they are most formidable and they control everyone. Certainly you maintain enmity with these material senses. You are never under the control of these senses. Rather, you are the controller of the senses, Rishikesh, my dear Lord. You have said that you are the bereft of all royal power, and that is also correct. Not only you are bereft of supremacy of the material world, but even your servant. Those who have some attachment to your lotus feet also give up the supremacy over the material world, because they consider the material possession to be the darkest region which checks the progress of spiritual enlightenment. Your servants do not like the material supremacy. So what to speak of you, my dear Lord? Your statement that you do not act as an ordinary person with a particular aim in life is also perfectly correct. Even your greatest devotees and servants, known as sages and saintly persons, remain in a state that no one can get clue to the aim of their lives. Human society consider them crazy and cynical. The aim of their life remains a mystery to the common human being. The lowest mankind can know neither you nor your servant. A contaminated human being cannot imagine the pastimes of you and your devotees. O unlimited one. When the activities and endeavors of your devotees remain a mystery to the common human beings, how can your motives and endeavors be understood by them? All kind of energies and opulences are engaged in your service, but still they rest at your shelter. You have described yourself as penniless, but this condition is not poverty, since there is nothing in existence but you. You do not need to possess anything. You yourself are everything. Unlike others, you do not require to purchase anything extraneously. With you, all the contrary things can be adjusted because you are the absolute. You do not possess anything, but no one is richer than you. In the material world, no one can be rich without possessing. Since your lordship is absolute, you can adjust the contradiction of possessing nothing, but at the same time being the richest. In the Vedas, it is stated that although you have no material hands and legs, you accept everything offered in devotion by your devotees. You have no material eyes and ears, but still you can hear and see everything everywhere. Although you do not possess anything, the greatest demigods who accept prayers and worship from others come and worship to solicit your mercy. How can you be categorized among the poor, my dear Lord? You have also stated that the richest section of human society does not worship you. This is also correct, because people who are puffed up with material possessions think of utilizing their property for sense gratification. When a poverty-stricken man becomes rich, he makes a program for hard sense gratification due to his ignorance of how to utilize his hard-earned money under the spell of this external energy. He thinks that the money is properly employed in sense gratification, and thus he neglects to render you transcendental service. My dear Lord, you have stated that the person who possesses nothing are very dear to you, renounces everything. Your devotee wants to possess only you. Therefore I see that a great sage like Narad Muni, who does not possess any material property, is very dear to you, and such person do not care for anything but your lordship. My dear Lord, you have stated that a marriage between persons equal in social standing, beauty, riches, strength, influence, and reunification can be a suitable match. But this status of life can be possible only by grace. You are the supreme perfection, source of all opulences. Whatever opulence that just one may have is derived from you, as described in Vedanta Sutra. You are the supreme source from which everything emanates, the reservoir of all pleasures. To achieve your favor, they give up everything, even the transcendental realization of Brahman. You are the supreme, ultimate goal of life. You are the reservoir of all interest of living entities. Those who are actually well motivated desire only you, and for this reason, they give up everything to attain success. My Lord, you have stated that only beggars praise your glories, and this is also perfectly correct. But who are those beggars? Those beggars are all exalted devotees, liberated personalities, and those in the renounced order of life. They are great souls who have no other business than to glorify you. Such souls forgive even the worst offenders. These so-called beggars execute the spiritual advancement of in life, tolerating all tribulations in the material world. My dear husband, do not think that I accepted you as my husband out of my inexperience. Actually, I followed all these great souls. I followed the path of these great beggars and decided to surrender my life into your lotus feet. You said that you are penniless. That is also correct. For you distribute yourself completely to this great soul and devotees. Knowing this fact perfectly well, I rejected even such personalities as Lord Brahma and King Indra. My Lord, the greatest time factor act under your direction only. The time factor is so great and powerful that within the creation can effect devastations. Considering all these factors, I thought Jarasandha, Sisupal, and similar princes who wanted to marry me would be no more important than ordinary insect. My dear all-powerful son of Vasudeva, your statement that you have taken shelter within the water of ocean out of fear of all great princess is unsuitable. For my experience with you contradicts this. I have actually seen that you kidnapped me forcibly in the presence of all these princes. At the time of my marriage ceremony, simply by giving joy to the string of a bow, you very easily drove others away and kindly gave me the shelter of a lotus feet. I can still remember very vividly you kidnapped me in the way that lion forcibly takes its share of hunted body, driving from all small animals within the twinkling of an eye. My dear lotus-eyed lord, I cannot understand your statement that women and other persons who have taken shelter on your lotus feet pass their days in bereavement. From the history of world, we can see the princes like Anga, Prithu, Bharata, and Yayati and Gaia were all empires of the world, and there were no competitors to their exalted position. But in order to achieve the favor of a lotus feet, they renounced their exalted position and entered the forest to practice penances and austerities. When they voluntarily accepted such a position, accepting your lotus feet, it mean that they were in lamentation and bereavement. My dear Lord, you have advised me that I can still select another from the princely order and divorce myself from your companionship. But my dear Lord, it is perfectly well known to me that you are the reservoir of all good qualities. Great saintly persons like Narad Muni are always engaged simply in glorifying your transcendental characteristics. Someone who simply takes shelter of such a saintly person immediately becomes freed from all material contamination. And when he comes in the direct contact with your service, the goddess of fortune agrees to bestow all her blessings. Under the circumstances, that woman who has once heard of your glories from authoritative sources or has somehow or other the nectarian fragrance of your lotus feet would be foolish enough to agree to marry someone of this material world who is afraid of death, disease, old age and rebirth. I have therefore accepted your lotus feet without consideration but after mature and deliberate decision. My dear Lord, you are the master of these three worlds. After hearing Rukmini's statement and her clarification of each and every word he had used to arouse her anger of love towards him, Krishna addressed Rukmini as follows: My dear chaste wife, my dear princess, I expected such an explanation from you, and only for this purpose I spoke all of those joking words so that you might be cheated on the real point of view. My dear Rukmini, such greated and exalted love for me will always remain within my soul. As far as I am concerned, it is not within my power to repay you for your unalloyed devotion towards me. According to Vedic culture, although polygamy is allowed, none of the wives should be ill-treated. In other words, one may take many wives if he is able to satisfy all of them equally as an ideal householder, otherwise it is not allowed. Lord Krishna is the world teacher. Therefore, even though he had no need for a wife, he expanded himself into many forms as he had wives, and he lived with them as an ideal householder, observing the regulative principles, rules, and commitments in accordance with the Vedic injunctions and the social laws and customs of the society. For each of his 16,108 wives, he simultaneously mounted different palaces, different establishments, and different atmospheres. Thus the Lord, although one, exhibited himself as ideal 16,108 ideal householder. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of 16th chapter of Krishna, talks between Krishna and Rukmini. Hare, Hare Krishna, and I hope you watched this video till the end. You are requested to subscribe our channel and share this video as much as possible.